Welcome back to Voice of Africa, the heartbeat of the continent where every story matters. We're thrilled to share a historic shift that's currently shaking the foundations of West Africa's post-colonial order. Something bold and extraordinary is unfolding in Senegal. Newly elected President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is turning a new page in Senegal's history, boldly reclaiming sovereignty, dismantling the strongholds of French influence, and inspiring a fresh wave of Pan-African pride. This isn't just a political change, it's a symbolic awakening, and we are honored to bring you the full story. But before we dive in, let us state clearly: disclaimer. The content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information, official statements, and authentic online materials. It is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. We do not promote hate, misinformation, violence, or political unrest. Our goal is to shed light on Africa's changing narrative, amplify local voices, and encourage thoughtful dialogue rooted in peace and mutual respect. Now let's take a deeper look at how President Faye is taking Senegal into a new era of independence, one that many argue has been long overdue. Since stepping into office, President Faye has sent a powerful message to the world. Senegal is ready to stand on its own terms. From renaming colonial-era streets to demanding the withdrawal of foreign troops, his administration is walking a bold path that seeks to dismantle the deep-rooted remnants of French influence. These are not just political gestures. They are cultural, educational, and spiritual acts of liberation. One of the most striking changes has been in Senegal's public spaces. In Dakar, the bustling capital, major roads and buildings still bore the names of French colonial leaders, figures who once shaped the architecture of domination. One such example is Boulevard Général de Gaulle, named after the French general whose legacy includes orchestrating France's post-colonial control mechanisms across Africa. That very boulevard is now under review for a name change, as citizens demand that their public spaces reflect national heroes, not colonial rulers. Local vendors and activists have been at the forefront of this movement. "Why should we honor the names of those who oppressed our ancestors?" asks one street vendor in Dakar. "We have our own heroes, real African heroes, whose names and legacies should inspire our children." The sentiments echo loudly across Senegal's youth and civil society. In response to growing calls for change, President Faye's government established the National Council for Memory and Historical Heritage in December 2024. Its mission? To audit and remove colonial-era symbols and restore pride by celebrating Senegalese and African icons who stood for resistance, liberation, and progress. This movement mirrors the cultural renaissance taking place in other parts of West Africa, particularly Burkina Faso, where Captain Ibrahim Traoré has already renamed institutions and streets after legendary figures like Thomas Sankara. These acts of symbolic resistance are more than aesthetics. They represent a deeper societal healing and redefinition of African identity. Let's take a moment to appreciate everyone making Voice of Africa what it is. To our subscribers, loyal viewers, and incredible members, thank you. Your support means the world to us. If you appreciate this kind of reporting and want to see more empowering stories from Africa, please consider using the Super Thanks button. Every contribution helps us continue telling our own stories, our own way. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's how we grow together. Beyond symbolism, President Faye is targeting the very foundation of national identity: education. For far too long, Senegalese school curricula have leaned heavily on Eurocentric perspectives. French colonial rule was glorified. African civilizations were minimized or ignored. The curriculum told students who they were through the eyes of their colonizers. Not anymore. Under President Faye's leadership, the Ministry of Education has begun rewriting school textbooks to focus on African history, local achievements, and Senegalese cultural values. This transformation is aimed at restoring dignity and fostering a new generation of young people who understand their roots, their struggles, and their potential. This aligns closely with initiatives in Burkina Faso, where the national anthem was recently translated into native languages, marking a dramatic break from French linguistic dominance. In Senegal, the changes are just as meaningful. Faye's administration wants every child to grow up with a deep knowledge of their true history, untainted by colonial distortions and rooted in pride for who they are. But perhaps the most groundbreaking move yet came in November 2024, when President Faye made a decision that stunned both allies and critics. Senegal would no longer host French military bases. This marks a monumental shift in the country's defense and foreign policy. It was a direct challenge to the post-colonial status quo and a declaration that Senegal's security would no longer be overseen by former colonizers. The timing of this announcement was particularly significant. It came shortly after France officially acknowledged the Thiaroye massacre of 1944, a dark chapter in history where French troops killed hundreds of Senegalese soldiers who were simply demanding their unpaid wages after fighting in World War II. While France admitted to just 24 deaths, eyewitnesses and survivors estimate that nearly 300 Senegalese veterans were gunned down. For decades, this history was buried, films banned, voices silenced. President Faye has taken a firm stand. This history must never be forgotten, he said. And with that, he signaled that a foreign military presence would no longer dictate Senegal's future. Across Senegal, the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. Social media exploded with pride. Youth groups rallied behind the president's decision, drawing comparisons to iconic figures like Thomas Sankara and Ibrahim Traoré. Civil society groups, often at the forefront of anti-colonial activism, praised the peaceful yet resolute direction Senegal is taking. Still, this bold vision isn't without critics. Some political analysts have raised concerns about the risks involved in cutting off French military support, especially given the region's ongoing struggle with jihadist insurgencies. Others point to the economic implications. France remains deeply embedded in Senegal's infrastructure, particularly in banking, energy, and telecommunications. Would distancing from France harm Senegal's development prospects? President Faye's response has been measured but firm. He has made it clear that Senegal is not severing ties out of hatred or hostility, but out of a desire for dignity, equality, and mutual respect. Unlike more radical moves seen in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where French troops and diplomats were expelled outright, Faye has maintained open diplomatic channels. His approach is more surgical than scorched earth. It's about resetting the terms of engagement. France, too, seems to be responding with caution. Rather than retaliating, French officials have emphasized dialogue and cooperation. It's clear they see the writing on the wall. Africa's younger generation is no longer satisfied with old dynamics. They want sovereignty, and they want it now. What we are witnessing is not just a Senegalese transformation. It's part of a continental reawakening. From Dakar to Ouagadougou to Bamako and Niamey, African leaders are asserting themselves and rewriting the script that was once dictated by colonial powers. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye represents this generational shift. A younger, reform-minded leader who came to power on a wave of hope and defiance, Faye understands the emotional and psychological toll of neocolonialism. He speaks the language of the people, both figuratively and literally, and he's leading with a clarity of purpose that resonates far beyond Senegal's borders. Yet, the question remains, can this revolution of ideas bring lasting change without triggering economic fallout or political instability? That is the balancing act, redefining sovereignty while safeguarding development and peace. But one thing is clear. The tide is turning. Africa is no longer content with being a subordinate partner in global affairs. The continent is rising, not with weapons, but with wisdom, history, and pride. So what do you think? Will Senegal's peaceful rejection of French dominance inspire more African nations to follow suit? Are we witnessing the dawn of a new Africa, unapologetically independent, boldly united, and finally free? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And once again, a heartfelt thank you to everyone supporting Voice of Africa. We are here because of you. If you found this story insightful, please consider dropping a super thanks or sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update from the African continent's most powerful stories. Until next time, stay proud, stay informed, and stay connected to the Voice of Africa, where our voice is our power.